the third generation A2L 2016. Suzuki Swift is a very popular little car because of its nimble performance, good looks, and affordable price tag. Seriously, what's not to like? There are tons of reviews that deal with how well it drives, whether it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity, the size of the water bottle that can fit in the door bin, and the number of cup holders. But how safe is this little Swift? Where you are in the world greatly determines the level of safety that the Swift will provide. Swifts tested in Europe and Australasia received 3 and 4 star ratings from Euro NCAP and ANCAP, which is their respective new car assessment programs, NCAPs. However, the Swifts sold in India and as tested in 2022 received only a 1-star rating, while the Swift tested in 2021 for the Latin American market received a 0-star rating. These vehicles were tested by Global NCAP and Latin NCAP. The Indian, Latin American, and South African markets are mainly supplied with Swifts that are produced by Maruti Suzuki in India. Different NCAP star ratings apply to Swifts from different regions. Each NCAP has its own testing protocol and standards against which it determines the star ratings. So, manufacturers provide similar-looking vehicles with different safety specifications to the various markets. However, while it is obvious when a vehicle has 2 airbags instead of 6, as the Euro NCAP tested model, what is less visible is that there might be differences in the structural integrity of the vehicle, which may affect its body shell integrity and the level of protection it provides to occupants. So, if I am in India or a Latin American country, I would consider the NCAP reports for the Swift I would like to buy, given that these Swifts have been rated. I would interrogate the dummies to see the color rating their body parts received in each of the crash tests. I would be concerned if any dummy's body parts were shaded in brown or red and would seriously consider the risk that would pose to me and my family. For example, if I seldom have passengers in the car, then I would not be so concerned about the ratings for the rear passenger dummies. But if I am ferrying my kids to school or have passengers on a regular basis, then those color ratings for the dummies on the rear seat are very important. I would supplement any missing crash test results with information from the Euro NCAP tests, but I would be mindful that the European Swift's body shell is usually built better, and it generally has more safety equipment. In other words, the European crash test results are usually the best-case scenario. For active safety measures, I would want Electronic Stability Control, ESC, or Electronic Stability Program, ESP, and Anti-Brake Lock System, ABS, as a minimum. For passive safety, I would want as many airbags as possible and a stable body shell or compartment. If the model Swift I want to buy has not been rated by my regional or relevant NCAP, then I would do the following. I would consider a crash test report from Euro NCAP of the same model as well as all of the NCAP tests from third world countries for that model, and would only select the worst-case scenarios as applicable to the vehicle I want to buy. For example, there is no global NCAP test report available for the Swift in South Africa, so I would note the Euro NCAP test scores and injuries to the respective dummies and consider these to be the best likely outcome. Then I would note the active and passive safety features that are available on the European model, but which are not on my model. Now I would consider all the NCAP tests from third world countries for the model and date of year I am interested in, especially those with similar safety features as the model I'm thinking of buying. I would view all the adverse findings from the respective tests as being applicable to my vehicle. In the absence of a crash test report specifically undertaken on that vehicle for my region by an NCAP, I would assume that all of the adverse findings are applicable to it. In the side-movable deformable barrier tests, protection for the driver's chest area was rated as weak in the Maruti Swift and poor in the Latin Swift. I would choose the worst result, poor. Both Swift's body shell, which is critical for safety, was rated as unstable and borderline unstable. Again, I'll take the worst result and assume my vehicle's body shell is unstable. In respect of child occupants, the test results are not displayed as robustly as in the Euro NCAP report, although the Maruti report does record marginal protection for the 3-year-old's head in a frontal impact and poor protection for the 18-month-old's head and chest. The Swift's Euro NCAP report for rear passengers shows marginal protection for those passengers' chests and poor protection from whiplash. Importantly, the frontal offset crash test for children aged 6 and 10 years old showed poor protection for the 6-year-old's chest and weak protection of the neck, as well as marginal protection for the 10-year-old's neck. The lateral impact test showed poor protection for the 10-year-old dummy's chest. These results are the best protection a Swift is going to offer, given that the body shell remains stable and it is fitted with a number of airbags. Tests results for the Maruti and Latin Swifts would in all probability be worst. The third-generation Swift available in South Africa has not undergone a global NCAP rating assessment for that market. I would assume, in the interest of my family's safety, that all of the worst NCAP ratings obtained by Swifts for third-world markets apply. So for the South African Swift, I would assume, in the frontal offset test, that protection for the driver's chest is weak. That protection is marginal for the driver's and front passenger's knees. That protection is poor for the driver's feet, and that the body shell and footwell are unstable. I would also assume that protection for the chest is poor in the side movable barrier test and for the neck as a result of whiplash from a rear impact. For child occupants, the Maruti Swift was awarded 1 star, while the Swift for the Latin market received a score of 0 because the manufacturer declined to recommend child restraint systems CRS for the test, failed to provide a clear table in the manual showing the positions and CR's mode appropriate for each child, and the vehicle did not have 3-point belts in all seating positions. The 1-star Maruti Swift's report states that the forward-facing child seat for the 3-year-old offered marginal protection to the chest and that the forward-facing 18-month-old CRS showed poor protection for the head and chest. Interestingly, the Euro NCAP Swift in the frontal offset test, the 6-year dummy showed poor chest protection and weak protection of the neck, and for the 10-year dummy protection of the neck was marginal. The side barrier test showed poor protection for the chest of the 10-year dummy. The 1.2 GL Swifts tested by Euro NCAP and the Australasian NCAP have frontal airbags, side chest protection airbags, and side head protection airbags as standard for the driver and passenger, and the rear passengers get side head protection airbags as standard. The South African Swift only gets 2 frontal airbags and no side protection airbags for either the front or rear passengers. The Swift is a funky little car that offers great value for money. But in a crash, I'm not a fan of an unstable body shell, chest pain, injured legs and feet, whiplash injury, or the lack of safety offered to passengers, especially children, in the rear seats. I must say no to the Swift until there's a global NCAP assessment of this vehicle for the South African market.